Hey guys, this is Gabrielle Bosché, president of the Millennial Solution, and I'm here with another Millennial Minute answering your questions about who the next generation is. So today I want to talk about Generation Z. No one seems to know who they are or where they came from or how they're going to be any different than the millennial generation. So I'm here to answer your questions and to set some things up pretty clear to talk about how millennials are different than Generation Z. So millennials are born between 1982 and 2000. They're the largest generation that's ever existed, and frankly, there's just a lot of information out there about millennials. Some people hate them, some people love them. Generation Z is the generation right after millennials. They're born between 2001 and probably 2020. Now I say probably because generations are starting to fluctuate so much. Scientists are actually saying that it's probably going to go from about 15 to 25 years is what a normal generation is, to about 10. Things are just moving so quickly. So Generation Z is a generation that, well, we call them Generation Z just because they came after millennials, which used to be called Generation Y. So get it? Generation X, Generation Y, Generation Z. But here's the thing, is that Generation Z probably isn't going to stay being called Generation Z. It's like millennials. We were called Generation Y for a while, and then we decided that we didn't like that at all and started calling ourselves millennials. Now most of us realize that it's not popular to be called a millennial, so we're just kind of saying we're 20-something or we're 30-something or we're young professionals or we're emerging leaders or whatever. So Generation Z, the name probably isn't going to stick. Other names that you hear are things like the I generation, the me generation, or the founder generation, which may stick, but we'll see. What's unique about Generation Z is that they take a very different approach to life and to work, even than millennials. So right now, millennials are the largest generation coming into the workforce. We've already seen the impact that they've had on education, on technology, on communication, on marketing and consumer markets, everything. Millennials have changed the game. So it's going to be interesting once we start to see who Generation Z is. So right now we see that Generation Z is actually much more independent than their millennial counterparts. So Generation Z would much rather do something on their own, from the comfort of their own home, using technology than even millennials did. So you can start to see how Generation is going to act in the workplace once you start to see how they work with one another and their colleagues. So we'd see Generation Z wanting to go out there and do things and make a difference, but they'd rather do it from the comfort of their home with their own technology on their own time than going out there and maybe meeting up with friends or doing something in a group. I always say that you think millennials are hard to deal with when it comes to technology. Just get ready, because Generation Z is coming and we have not seen anything like them before. Generation Z is extremely independent, very entrepreneurial, and really into problem solving on their own terms. They're not going to be a generation like millennials who want to get together and have this kind of team meeting and talk about everything. Generation Z is going to be, frankly, a lot like Generation X, very independent, very much what's the task, what needs to be done, and how can we get it done the fastest. We're also seeing with Generation Z that they're taking a different approach even to what education and work looks like. They've seen most of their millennial colleagues and sisters and brothers go off to college and come back with mounds and mounds of debt. And so because of that, Generation Z is actually going to demand something different of the higher education and certificate market. They're going to say, yes, I want to have the information, but what am I going to get for it? I want to have an exchange that actually makes sense. So we're going to start to see Generation Z creating alternative forms of education, alternative forms of personal development, and alternative forms of working. It's extremely exciting as Generation Z starts to get into college and will soon be graduating and entering our workforce. That's it for my Millennial Minute. It was a little bit longer than a minute, talking about who the next generation is and how you can work with us. Thanks, guys.